Well, welcome edition of our Daily Gun Show podcast. We normally go live every weeknight at midnight. However, that doesn't really work for most people's real schedules. So in order to have, oops, we got something live somewhere. In order to accommodate, we're going live at a different time. So thanks to everybody who is joining us live. But we have Cheryl Todd and Tony Simon joining us, who both were part of the 10th annual Second Amendment rally here in Arizona this last weekend. And since we didn't do anything ahead of time with everybody, which probably would have been just as difficult with all the prep and the accommodate, getting everything ready, we decided to, or I was able to grab them for an after action, a wrap up and a reflection on the event. And I don't know if this is done very often. I haven't seen one before, so maybe we're starting something new here. And we're looking forward to some feedback. We do these live, so we appreciate the interactive nature of the internet. Thank you for being part of the live conversation. But if you're listening to this in the future as a video, then again, feel free to leave us some feedback on having these conversations after the event when it's still fresh in everybody's mind. And with such a successful event, however, I suspect it would also be useful after a less successful event. But after such a successful event, there's so much anticipation typically. And I've been part of so many, like, hey, we're announcing an event, the event's on its way. Everybody's, getting ready for this event. The event happens and then poof, it's over. And that's frustrating as anybody who's familiar with some, actual planning or tactical strategic development, you'd need after action work. I mean, there's nothing that gets accomplished without after action investigation and kind of collaboration. So I figured instead of doing that individually, which I'm sure is how it normally kind of happens organically, people that either meet up physically right after the event or, casually, intermittently, or, sporadically after, it probably happens, but not kind of officially and certainly not with everyone's involvement in the live thing. So again, if you're joining us live, thanks for joining us and be part of it. I'll take just a brief second here. We're going to go we're going to go at the maximum an hour because I'm kind of grabbing everybody's time this evening, but we don't have to go a full hour. But so that we don't take too much time, just Cheryl, would you take a moment, just briefly introduce your projects and your affiliation with the rally, and then we'll go to Tony.
Absolutely. I am Cheryl Todd from Gun Freedom Radio, and you have to pronounce it right or it doesn't count, right? So I wear a ton of different hats in the Second Amendment advocacy world. Among those, I am the vice president of the AZCDL. We are the watchmen on the wall and the guard dogs in the Arizona State Legislature, making sure we help good laws pass and help kill bad laws. I'm the president of the AZCDL Foundation. That's the educational arm, the C3 nonprofit arm. And our mission is right now to bring the Faster Saves Lives emergency response program to Arizona. It was born in Ohio 10 years ago, has been quietly saving lives for a decade, and we are bringing it to Arizona. I'm the Arizona State Director to the DC Project, Women Dedicated to Safeguarding Our Right to Keep and Bear Arms, and other hats, but pertaining to the rally, I get to be on the organization and planning team, and I have the blessing of finding and organizing all of the speakers, of which our other guest tonight was one of a real showstopper, a real hit with the crowd. So Tony Simon.
Right on. Thanks for that. And I appreciate it because that's no easy feat to summarize all the hats that you wear and what all you're doing. And you definitely summarize that without mentioning Pot of Gold auctions or AZ Firearms auctions, which is a big part of what we do here and Arizona gun culture. So thanks for that part too. And I think Arizona Firearms auctions helped promote and helps to support the rally as well, right?
Absolutely. I really should give a nod to the portions of my life that actually bring money in the door instead of, I volunteer so much of my time and energy. And yes, and you are so amazing here on gun websites to follow our auctions when they're happening online, live online, and talking about the different items that are being sold. And so AZ Firearms Auctions and Pot of Gold Estate Auctions work in conjunction together to bring great items, including guns, ammo, and accessories, where you set the price because it's an auction.
Right on. And then, like you mentioned, Tony was also at the rally. Now, there was a bunch of speakers. You know how many off the top of your head? How many speakers
30.
do we have?
30
speakers in a 4-hour event. You can ask people. I was like, this is crazy. This is going to be chaotic. This is going to be crazy. I don't know if we're going to talk about that a little bit, but it wasn't. It was awesome. So Tony was one of them. And to be gracious, he went ahead and just only took a delicate 13-minute chunk of time from you. But so I figured, instead of trying to get all 30 people in here, which technically isn't possible, even though we're paying for StreamYard, it's like 10 people, I think, can fit in here. And I would have to be introducing myself, and there'd be so much time taken just in the polite parts of it. I figured I would just invite Cheryl and Tony, who I know and who have been on our shows before, so make it a little bit more comfortable. But also, you represent two extremes of the, you've been involved in the rally, at the rally for the first time, one part of the country, other part of the country, different realms of activism and stuff. So Tony, thanks for joining us. And if you would, for anybody who doesn't know a little bit about yourself and the 2A for E.
My name is Tony Simon. I started the Second is for Everyone diversity shoot in 2015 after realizing that we needed someone to introduce. It started off as Black people, but it really became inclusive to everyone, to involve people in the advocacy side of the Second Amendment, and also to introduce people and bring new people in. So I started that to bring new shooters in, to welcome people who just purchased a firearm, and to get veteran gun owners out and to become politically active by introducing them to Second Amendment advocacy groups. So I started that in 2015, and it's grown from hosting that event at one range to hosting it at 4 ranges in 2 states. Also, we went and did host an event out in Omaha. I also started Second is for Everyone podcast. So that was what I do with the activism. I'm also co-host to 2 other podcasts. But yeah, that's all I do. I'm trying to stretch my resume out just so I sound like a fraction as busy as Cheryl is, but I'm not. I'm just a dude that hosts events, and every now and again I speak at events.
Right on. Well, I'm going to take a second and just to mention that both of these people have 9-to-5 jobs, and they do all this activism as a part-time gig. As maybe it takes full-time time, but as a more than a hobby, but not as a full-time occupation by any means, or even a full-time passion. Because Cheryl alluded to, it takes bill, we have to pay bills and stuff. So we thank our Patreons, the people that support our projects, the people that go to Pot of Gold auctions and AZ Firearms auctions that help make it possible to do what we're doing. But Tony's in a car right now because he's coming home from work, right? Cheryl is at work, I think. And right, so we do appreciate the people that make it possible for do what we do. Now let's take a second and talk about the rally. So the rally's 10th annual rally. I guess Cheryl's going to know a little bit more about this than me, I guess, because I've been to most of them. The 10th annual rally, you just mentioned 30-something guests. That was ambitious. Was that reckless and crazy? Was that strategic? Did you know that certain ones weren't going to show up, or that some people would be kind of slower? Or was this an experiment, or was this calculated? Or am I quit asking questions and let you chat about that aspect, the ambition of this one?
So that's a great series of questions. And each one of the speakers was supposed to take, 5-7 minutes tops. So I love that you already kind of like poked a little bit in Tony's ribs that, but you know what? It didn't feel long. Like everything Tony said was right on point. But yeah, it was a generous portion of time you took there, Tony.
I didn't realize it till later.
But altogether, it was a 4-hour event, and it only went like 20-something minutes technically over. And everyone was gracious about that, and no one was like scooting us out of there. And people were there till the end.
Yes, and that was tremendous. So I'm always looking for 25-ish speakers, because you always know that somehow, some way, somebody's travel isn't going to come together, or weather's going to be an issue, or something's going to come up. And this year we even did lose two and still had, I think, 30 speakers. AWR Hawkins was supposed to be there, and he didn't, he was really under the weather and couldn't make it. And Mark Walters of, so AWR Hawkins is Breitbart News, and Mark Walters is Armed American Radio. And the thing with that is that Mark was going to stay with AWR and wasn't about to come here and just soak up a bunch of germs so he could go back home with a bunch of germs, because they had like a whole week planned to help justify the expense of Mark flying out and that sort of thing. So we lost those two. And so I figured, well, I'm probably okay on time still, but there does need to be, a certain level of, you just make sure I hit my marks. As soon as somebody's done speaking, me or my co-MC Jeff Knox of the Firearms Coalition, one of us has to be on stage gearing up the next speaker to come up. And then we always want to say a little thing or two, as a speaker's leaving the stage. And so I think Jeff and I have really kind of fallen into a nice little rhythm with that. And if I get sidetracked because like somebody will come up and want to do an interview with one of us, and it's like, all right, well, Jeff's supposed to be up next with the next speaker, I'll just dive in there and take care of that. But it was ambitious to have 30 speakers. I do feel bad that I let it run over. But at the same time, I can't think of whose comments I would want to have abbreviated. Everybody was so on point and so passionate, and brought really good information from their area of expertise that, and it's so hard when I'm building the list to find that cutoff point and go, okay, I'm really, really full. I'm absolutely not able to add another person, because it has become an event that people are now reaching out to us and saying, please, do you have time for me to share about, something important I'm working on or something like that. So it was, I think ambitious was the right word for it. And I should probably cut back and make it, 22 to 25 maximum next year, but check in with me and see how I did this time next year.
Right on. Well, I appreciate that. And yeah, but I think then it was calculated. You've got plenty of experience doing this with past rallies and then other events that you either have attended or been part of. So you got the, through osmosis or whatever, you get the experience of how they're running it and what works. And that we gained from that experience. So thank you for that. And I thought that, again, it wasn't like my concern at the list of speakers was that because they were a lot of impressive speakers and stuff that had something to say, and they were not just getting up to be a pretty face or to be like, everybody cheers or, my rights, my property speech. It was stuff to say and for the audience to hear. And we have a really diverse audience as far as Arizona rally, as far as the rallies I've attended. And it's a larger rally, and this was a pretty decent one, but it's usually pretty diverse. So I'm always curious to hear how the people are going to be accepted, or who's going to live, how it's going to be absorbed. Is that the word? And so my concern, I guess, was with so many that it would just be boom, 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 boom. But it wasn't at all. And it didn't really reach over. So how many people didn't show up? Just the two?
Just the two. And then there was an unexpected pair of speakers. They are the hottest fiancés in the 2A advocacy world. Shaky Dave Smith, we know him as the Parkinson's shooter. He writes the blog Gun Therapy, and his fiancée, Amy Dillon, who is a spokesperson for 501 or 511 and a few other organizations. And she's a first generation Filipino. So her family has direct experience with what happens when your rights are gone non-existent. They had to flee their home because a hostile military force came into their nation. And so, I had asked them early on, and they didn't think their calendar would allow for it. So then I, filled up the schedule. And then at SHOT Show, we were actually walking out. My family was walking out of the facility, the SHOT Show facility, past Amy and Dave on their way in. And I was like, all right, well, it's good seeing you. And she goes, well, we're coming to the rally. And I'm like, what? You are? And she said, yeah, we figured out how to get it on the schedule. And I'm like, and so will I. So come, show up, and it'll be awesome.
That's awesome, because I think Tony brings a great point up. He mentioned it in his speech, where through the use of black and white photography, the fairly recent racist stuff that's gone on, gets kind of, what's the word? Like, I don't want to say marginalized. I don't think that's the right word, but like, it gets perceived as though it happened in the distant past when they make everything black and white, when there were definitely all color pictures. And I think another perception is that first generation people to the United States are either illegal or 3 generations ago, like our grandparents before the boomers, and that's bullshit. So it's great to, that's not the way it is. So I guess it's my show, but I should, anyway, for prime time, I'm used to being in the midnight, sorry. So, but first generation people who appreciate their rights. We got Gabby Franco in the DC Project as well, and obviously tons of others. So that part was awesome to have. When I talk about diversity, that aspect I thought was a great point to have. But Dave, who brings the health awareness, differently abled folks and their use of and their need of a lack of NFA. The NFA completely restricts the elderly and the differently abled from being able to either have development in firearms, just like any other artificial or accessible device, or something that makes something more ergodynamic or ergonomic, whatever the words are. For someone who's got an issue with grasp or grip strength or any type of muscular issues. And he talked about the sling. And then, that element of the shooting sports being both therapeutic and from the mental side and the physical side is definitely absent from the conversation almost always. So awesome that was able to happen. And, just a great way to cherry on the top, because since they were towards the end of the whole event, for the people that stuck around and stuff, like totally worthwhile value at the end of the rally like that.
Absolutely.
So that's interesting. I didn't know that was kind of a happenstance, or that was a happy accident or happening.
Yeah, I was super excited that they were able to dive in there. But, it was at the time I thought I still had, Mark and AWR. So I was like, ooh, this is really going to be squeezed. But
no, you kind of had some luck with the Tetris randomness, because Mark would have probably taken some time and AWR would have taken some time. So you lost 2 of the Tonys, and right. As far as time contained.
One of the things I loved about Tony being there is, first of all, like his whole deal is about diversity, right? Oh, that's an awesome shot. I love that.
It took us 15 minutes to wait for the cycle to go through. The guy was like about to leave. We're like, hey, can you hold on? Because this guy's going to be coming up here in a minute, we thought. And then he's like super nice. He gave me a set of sunglasses. So FYI, if you're ever going to take pictures of one of these vehicles, which is essentially a giant LED screen, use a pair of any sunglasses, prescription or not, hold it in front of your phone, and that gives you a decent picture. I don't know if I grabbed one where I had the sunglasses in front, but it's like night and day. It's like a polarizing, some kind of technical thing.
That is great to know. But so Tony, he's all about diversity. He gave an impactful speech. The crowd was really engaged. But then to see all of the people that wanted to come up and interact with Tony, I mean, all the speakers, but seemed like Tony specifically had, I don't want to say groupies necessarily, but there was people that definitely wanted to spend time with the pound for pound largest gun bunny in the industry.
So did you know the story of Tony's speech? Did he have a chance to tell you about it at all? And how he wrote it ahead of time?
I trust them to bring it, and Tony definitely did.
Okay, so you haven't heard the story of Tony's speech. So I got two questions. Well, first off, how much time do you think how impactful was Tony's speech as far as points hit and poignancy, considering he came right after Sheriff Lamb, who's super popular in Arizona, has horrible situation happen in his family. So everybody's super aware of that. And he announced a potential, well, likely running for office and not just sheriff, right? And then
Senate.
Tony takes the Senate, office.
Yeah.
And then Tony takes the stage after that. So with that, setting that stage, Tony, first off, let me give you a second to, well, I wanted to ask you about that truck. What's it like to be able to walk past a truck and have your face on it at the end of a rally like that?
It was really weird. I mean, as in, like, how should I feel right now? Because as a regular human being, it's like my picture's up on the side of a freaking truck, and I'm excited, right? But then the other part is you got to be humble because it's amazing, and a lot of the other people do this stuff. But those two things is like I'm up on the side of a freaking truck because right before it was Sue Ritter, and I was like, because I spoke to Sue. Sue and I met 5-6 years ago, maybe even longer. But she was a brunette then. And it didn't click to me until I saw her picture. I was like, that's why I didn't remember. She had dark hair. And then the next picture was me as I'm pointing to the truck. And I'm like, whoa. Just whoa. So it was pretty cool. And I thought it would come up shortly, and we did wait 15 minutes for it to cycle through everything. And then I started feeling kind of silly because it's like, yo, dude, I'm waiting. Like narcissism is like, yo, I'm waiting for my picture to pop back up. What kind of douche pickle am I? Just to take a photo. But man, my first reaction was so genuine. Like, holy crud, I'm on the side of a truck. So
in that 15 minutes, like 3 different people came up and said, hey to Tony. So his speech was super impactful. You hit a bunch of different topics that hit, there's different people that show up at the rally. So I'm going to take a second and wing through some of these pictures. This was near the food area after, and this is him talking to Jeff. There's the puppy. This is standing behind whatever the media tent and right in front of the stage would be. And the state capitol. There's some puppy pictures in here. This is the Writers USA who who helped facilitate. Cheryl does. If I'm summarizing this correctly, Cheryl takes care of the scheduling and that kind of facilitation, and the Writers USA take care of the event and the tents and the layout and the park, and of course the bicycles, the motorcycle parade, and that kind of thing. So this is a kind of a panoramic. I don't know how well I'm still learning my cameras, but to give you an idea, the state capitol to the left there, and just a great group of people there. And I'm showing this because we have, this is Arizona. So we've got retirees, we've got natives, we've got people from California who come for the freedom and come in spite of the freedom. We've, because of the money. We've got people who flock here because of whatever reason they want to be near the outdoors. We got people that flock here because they want to be near Vegas, Albuquerque, and LA, which you can be near all those cities and live in Phoenix, right? I don't want to say it's the best of all worlds because you should not move here unless you're super pro 2A. But, there's Phoenix is a big place and there's a lot of people here. And then all the weirdos that gun rallies are going to attract, right? So you've got, I think there's been actually Attorneys for Freedom did a great job of kind of showing people. Tony did a kind of a series. I don't know how many of them posted of like kind of showing the kind of representation of the kind of people that showed up. But everything from your cosplay to your literally a guy wearing like a Minuteman triangle hat, whatever that's called, musket, right? To just regular people, to families. There was like some kind of a family that had, I don't know, 10 kids, little kids, parents, open carrying barbecue guns, just, good, lots of wholesome stuff, lots of interesting stuff, and then a little bit of fringe. Like it wasn't all a party. There was some people that I don't know what they were doing. That guy that came up right at the end of Tony's speech that we're about to talk about, who kind of sat down that boom box and had to have literally a conversation with some police officers a little later. So a little bit of everything, a little bit of attention, nowhere near a lot of attention, but a little bit of everything. And Tony's 12, 13 minutes, which I don't know if he's posted it anywhere or how the stuff, we'll ask about how this stuff gets posted in a minute here. and feel free if you're listening to this, you're not observers, you're not watching a television show or listening to a radio show, you're participating in an internet conversation, so be part of it. We still have half an hour here ish, but I was trying to explain that there's a diverse set of people here that have come for their 10th rally. They're expecting what Cheryl offers, so they're not expecting nothing. They're expecting, they're expecting what you can expect, what there is to expect. Cheryl brings that to the table. And Tony gets up there for 13 minutes, and everyone isn't quite jaw dropping, but they're clapping. And even after Sheriff Lamb, with his announcements and how significant he is to Arizona, Tony gets up there and has people for the rest of the day coming up and like, get out of the way, I want to go talk to this guy before he leaves town. So Tony, tell us about writing that speech in preparation for that speech. Cheryl, keeping in mind Cheryl hasn't heard the story.
All right, so yeah, and when it comes to writing speeches, I don't write speeches. I didn't write a speech. That's my story. I have talking points that I want to make, and the reason I don't write a speech is because to me personally, it feels wooden. It feels prepared, and for a moment like coming after Sheriff Lamb, a written speech would have been horrible. Because I feel you have to take in the energy of the crowd that you're around and the energy that he brought. I don't think if I could have had said a speech, it would have when I write speeches or when I see speeches, I feel they set a certain tone and it would have been wrong because he brought the crowd up to here. And I felt it was my job to bring them up to here. So that's what I did, or at least I was attempting to do. And I feel it was successful, but it's like, yo, dude, a written speech could have just been horrible right after this. And yes, I laughed when I went up because I was supposed to go after John Correa, and I watched the last year or a couple. I knew what John was going to do. I knew John was going to get up there and kind of tick people off and make them think and do the John thing. And I was like, yeah, I got this. It's John. And then Sheriff Lamb comes up and everybody loves him. And then Ursula leans over and goes, yeah, we call him American Sheriff. And I'm like, wait a minute. He's got a dang nickname? Like, wait a minute. He's so well liked. He has a friggin' nickname? And they're like, yeah. And then he came up and found everybody for their prayers. And I'm like, what are they talking about? Oh, you didn't know. So now I get the backstory. I'm like, wait a minute. Everybody knows this and I'm going after this? And then he catches the crowd and he holds them and he thanks them and he talks about the Second Amendment and how he upholds. And I was like, all right, cool. I'm good to this. And then he was like, and I'm investigating running for the U.S. Senate. I'm like, oh, come on. Oh, come on. Like, all right, well, here we go. Here we go. And I go up and I'm like, Cheryl introduces me at the largest pound for pound gun buddy. And I'm like, here we go. Oh, it was awesome.
You're welcome.
I stopped being nervous about making speeches. So I wasn't nervous at all. I just walked up and started laughing. I'm like, now I know what it felt like to be the speaker right after Martin Luther King Jr.'s I Have a Dream speech. It's like, I could have not even written a speech because nobody's going to remember it.
Oh my God.
But it was fun. I wanted to get out the word. I wanted to get out to talk to the people of Arizona. I wanted to be positive because I think that is very much why people come to a rally, for the positivity. But I wanted to give people homework and an idea what was coming, because now the camel's nose is under your tent and you're going to have to deal with this every election, every primary, every one of them. You got to put in work to shove this genie. You're not going to shove it back in a bottle. You're just going to battle it and belittle it. And I wanted to express that message without beating people up. And I felt I did that. And the crowd was appreciative. There were, of course, some people that were trying to be part of your speech with you. And I'm kind of used to that, too. So I'm like, all right, cool. You want to cheer? You want to clap? You want to say amen? Awesome. Then when my man with the beret came and the red wing shoes and the painter's pants, and he put the speaker down, he tried to get in, and I dealt with him, and then I finished my speech. Um, I didn't know I went on that long. I thought it was a short speech. And, Jeff didn't say anything like get him off stage, so I figured I was doing all right. And I walked off stage, and and Ursula was like, "Who's the guy to put down the box? I'm going to go talk to the police because that could be something." I'm like, "Well, that brought me down really quick." Brought me down really quick. I'm like, okay, no problem. But it was great. Lauren walked up to me, Liberty, Lauren Liberty, and she gave me a hug, which was awesome. But I didn't know it was her because she looked totally different than the video that I was actually initially going to interview her about. And it had been 9 months. She wasn't pregnant when I was talking to her, and she had her baby. So she gave me a hug. We took a photo together. And a few people, okay, yeah, people walked up to me a lot and told me they enjoyed the speech, which I felt really good about. So I'm happy about that. I'm happy where I went. I'm happy about the entire thing. I got to spend some time with people. I wish I would have spent more. Like, I just wish I would have had so much more energy and went and did so many more things. I wanted to get more pictures of people with their guns. I wanted to talk to NRA ILA. I got some things done. I wanted to get more video of the event, like the guys at Retro T-shirts with their cool Hawaiian type shirts. I spoke to them.
Oh, speaking of that, I have your business card. It fell out in the van, so I'll give
Thanks,
you
man.
a picture of it. Yeah.
I was trying to live in the moment, and I guess I'm not at that age where, I'm living in the moment with my phone on and videotaping it, because it was so great. It was such a great vibe and feeling. Meeting the guys there, running into the Vietnam vets that were on the motorcycles and actually having conversations with two of them, the chaplain, who's a big dude. And he was also the one that spoke to Mr. Boombox speaker guy with the beret and calmed him down. I met two former Marines that were there. That's me right there with Rhonda Mary. I interviewed her for my podcast. As she's being interviewed herself, I actually recorded Rhonda's speech, sent it to her, and then accidentally erased it from my phone.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so it sucks. But it was a great vibe. The weather was awesome. The people were great. I'm just glad to be a part of it. And hopefully I can come back next year, because I spoke to people about that to work with me for the diversity shoot. And two guys from Rangers who definitely want to do it. One of the guys would actually speaker after me. He actually wants to be in on it. Of course, Ursula volunteered and looked at me like, "How dare you ask?" It's like, "Hey, Ursula, you want to help me with this?" She was like, "Yeah."
Duh, of course.
What's wrong with you? So I can't wait for next year. I'm
Just
going to
so
do
that
a
we
lot.
don't assume too much, because I don't know who might be listening to this. And Tony introduced himself before, but the diversity shoot is when Tony, for 7 years now or more, has been bringing folks together of all backgrounds and all like levels of awareness or interest in firearms, to let them have an orientation and familiarization. Then, if they want to pull some triggers, to learn both about firearms, but also the community, to help normalize firearms and gun owners. And that's been successful in New Jersey and then other states now. And this was an kind of, I'm calling it recon effort to get out, see it Arizona, same way that Faster has come out to Arizona, right?
Yeah, I think it's important. I think Arizona has a diverse population. From that event, it has diverse people that are interested in the Second Amendment. And to have a venue where you can bring your friends and family out, because truthfully, many people fear the unknown. They fear the unknown, and if you have a friendly face that can come in, cool. Especially if it's a minority and you're a minority and you've believed all the BS your whole life about what's in a range. if I can make you feel comfortable and get you out there and introduce you to Second Amendment advocates and the whole thing at once, happy to do it. So that's what I want to bring to not only AZ, but I'm going to be working already. We have the dates in May. We just have to get the range names and everything else with NRAILA, and we'll be in Oklahoma, Nebraska, and Kansas City.
Wow.
In a week.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Talk about it. All I got to do is line up speakers. I don't have to do that.
So depends if they do, because hopefully the ranges will work it like we work with Omaha and with the Nebraska Firearms Owners Association. We did 3 events in one day. So if we can hit, because we're talking 4 cities, 3 states, 1 week. So if I do 12 events or 9 events,
dang, I love it. I love it. I really was wishing that we could have figured out how to get the diversity shoot together this year, but I had so many plates spinning. I was in Florida for the whole first 3 quarters of the week before this year's rally. So I was just bonkers by the time the day came. But the trainer you're talking about that wants to be a part of it is David Laird. And I had tried to connect you two on email, but there's so much going on.
It was me
in person, you know.
That was great though, right? Because I mean, we met, we had a lot in common. We were laughing about stuff. And I think he gets it. And I feel more comfortable with it because I finally wrote it up. I have it written down of what it is so I can talk to somebody that wants to help. And he seemed to really get it. And I can't wait because putting it on in other states, when you're speaking to someone, they can hear the passion, but they like, how many butts does it put in a seat? Yeah. How does it help us out? How does it benefit? And I think people will learn that the more and more we go. So right now I've done them in Pennsylvania. I've again, Omaha with the Nebraska Firearms Owners Association. And I was working to do one in Harrisburg, and this is what I feared. I'm not going to tell you the name of anything, but the guy went, this is the range owner. We've done ghetto shoots before.
He did not.
Yeah. And I was like,
oh my gosh.
What about me says ghetto?
Yeah.
One.
Yeah. What is a ghetto? I mean, just come on.
Bruh,
just stop it.
It was hilarious because the person I was with looked at the guy and he was like, all right, well, listen, thanks for your time. And we walked off. We walked off in silence. And it was hilarious because we're walking away and I'm swearing it's like 5 minutes. Neither one of us said anything. And I went, ghetto shoot, huh? And then I just started laughing. I'm like, oh, I guess he's out. And that was it. We were cool.
It's good to know where you don't want to be, right? It's good to know where you're not welcome because then you can just move on. Right?
Oh,
energy somewhere else.
I was like, I didn't worry about it at all, but I thought it was really funny because I'm like, well, that's good that came out early. Yes. That's why I like meeting people. I like talking to people, get the feel of it, and people are going to be themselves, hopefully.
Yeah.
Me, I want to grow this thing, and the last thing I want is to have bad anything. That was a funny confrontation between the Great Dane and your puppy, the pug.
This puppy doesn't care at all about that Great Dane, and that Great Dane could not handle the fact that that puppy didn't care at all about that giant Great Dane.
Dude, 0 Fs. That little dog was like, he didn't even acknowledge him. It was great. And the guy was holding his pet horse back with both hands, leaning back. And the pug was like, my dad's right here. I'm not worried at all.
I love it.
Oh, that was great.
So here's a little tip. Y'all are just always looking at each other, standing there doing these selfies, shake each other's hands once in a while. I think that looks more normal.
Yeah.
Here's Cheryl. So, this was without the sunglasses, and then 2 clicks later, he gave me the sunglasses, and there's with the sunglasses.
That was significant, bro.
Sorry, Cheryl, I interrupted. What were you going to say?
No, I mean, it's your show, but I just feel like I wanted to, before we do run out of time, I wanted to tell people about the media that had come out. Now, I think there was a couple of the ABCs or, whatever the local, but I never did hear that they aired anything. Like maybe they showed up, maybe they did a brief interview here or there.
So they
But
were collecting B-roll potentially.
that's what I think. And they probably took B-roll of the stuff that makes us look the worst, like somebody wheeled up a guillotine. Like, I don't even know. I
Yeah.
don't even know what that was about. Where did this thing come from? Did somebody have it on a dolly cart? Like, I don't. So a guillotine shows up. There's always the, obligatory guy who looks like a caricature. He's in his dungarees, like forget what the overalls, and he's carrying a rebel flag. Like
Mhm.
I don't know who you are. I don't know who you think you're connected to here, but like he's always completely by himself. Nobody's interacting with him. So it's like, I'm just not sure what statement you're trying to make, but you don't speak for me. God bless you, And so that is probably what the other news in air quote were there
Mhm.
picking.
Well,
But
media.
the media that came out to really help us tell our story, specifically George Nimi, and I know I butcher his last name every time, but he has a show online called MAAP Real Talk Radio or MAAP Broadcasting, either one. So he was streaming all day long. He is going to cut those into pieces and put them out on his social media. The man that was doing our, set up the stage and did all the speakers and all the microphones and everything, that was Justin Moscow. And he's going to be putting out all of the speeches individually. Sean Campbell, he's well known in the Second Amendment conservative world. He was out there with his drone, actually, which
Yeah,
I
I
thought
saw that
was
and I was looking for that. What was the name of that one again?
Sean Campbell. And In View, I think, is his. I'll have to look that up to see what the name of
Yes, it
his
was something like that. Yep. I
something like
saw it
that.
and I didn't save it, I guess, and I couldn't find it. It's like something like that.
Yeah.
Follow him on IG. It's his name, SEAN, Sean.
Yes.
Sean Campbell. It might be Sean Campbell Photography or something like that, but it's his name. So I started following him, and the drone footage he has is pretty cool. So
And,
yeah, that's definitely worth looking at.
Yeah,
And
let's
then-
take a look at that right now. Go ahead.
and then Ford Fisher. Now, Ford Fisher is famous for embedding himself in the middle of the most chaotic scenes. He's usually wearing full riot helmet and gear, and he goes in and he gets, footage and helps, put together documentaries and stuff like that. So Ford was, he was coming out, and so I was like, Ford, I'm glad to have you here. I love you, but do you know something I don't know? Like, why are you coming? And he
Nice.
laughed. He said, I don't know anything. Everything's fine. I just want to come and enjoy the sunshine. And so his brand is News to Share. So it's news, the number 2, share is Ford Fisher's. And yes, you found it in Sky. That's the Sean Campbell's.
I just need to pull it to my other screen. For whatever reason, it won't present to this screen, but it will present. Let me allow that, and then it will present to this screen. Oops.
So we also
Go ahead.
Chris Swainhart, and I believe his is Gun Stuff TV.
Yeah.
And just great people who could have been anywhere, could have been doing anything, but they took their time. Look at this, how cool this is.
This is amazing. So I'm so glad you were able to have a pro do it and knows what they're doing, because anybody can fly up and down. That's all I can ever do. So I haven't had a chance to practice or anything, but this really gives you an idea of, I wish there's a way to slow it down, but this is some booths or pop-up tents. And we're looking, we're going to see this in a loop a few times, but these pop-up tents are arranged, and essentially peace sign or a chicken foot, right? There's the middle coming out from the stage, and that's where the cameras and the microphones from the professional recordings are done. MMP Guns, one of the sponsors, has a booth set there right before the stage. This is Ursula at the stage, and you can see the kind of the arrangement there right at the front. Just behind her is where the DC Project ladies took that picture. This is some of the police that hang out on the top of the legislative buildings right here by the Capitol. And I guess this guy's got balls of steel to go take a drone up there. This is showing you the kind of the street where normally the rally would be right there in that grass. And in a big year, it would be both of those grass fields. And sometimes this is parking. Well, this year, this is the rally, and you really get to see it. Now, what we're seeing, let me pause. Can it pause? Can it pause? Will it pause? Oh, it does pause. Okay, when it shows it again, this is to the right of us is the Capitol. To the left of us is the monuments for the Arizona Memorial and all the different campaigns that people from Arizona have perished in. Then there's this walkway, and that's where the majority of the pop-ups are. To just underneath the drone, just at the bottom of this is the food, and to the top of the area, that is the parking lot where most of the bikers put their bikes, I guess, after the parade. To the right of us is the stage, and we'll continue it again. And now you can see coming down to the stage, the Capitol is behind it. I mean, the only thing they could have done to make it better is get rid of the stupid fence right here for pictures, but otherwise you couldn't tell from standing on the ground. You could only really tell if you're looking down with pictures. We had Gun Freedom Radio and Arizona Firearms are on the right there, along with the AZCDL Foundation is on the right. You've got the speakers area where you had a place for speakers to take a break, and what you probably had refreshments. I saw donuts getting snuck out of there. Just to the left of them, the Arizona Citizens Defense League booth. Gun Owners of America was there, had a booth. Antonio was there representing with people from Gun Owners of America. You had Jeff and Chris Knox selling or offering, just really giving away their book. I shouldn't say that, but if you just ask for them, they'll give you one of the books from their dad, Neil. And then I forgot who else is on the right. Something like the Young something.
Maybe Young Republicans. I don't remember.
No, it's the thing that the girl Paige is with.
Oh, TPUSA.
Turning point over there with Gun Freedom Radio and
Paige Rue.
Yep. So that's kind of the layout. I'll go back to, and I tried to, oops, I guess I interrupted there as you were kind of mentioning, but that gives people kind of a spatial layout. And again, this is a neat kind of zoom out from it, past that media, past MMP Guns. Attorneys for Freedom is right below us. It's coming over the food, and then coming in from the other side at the audience. Now let's take a look at just as it's kind of giving you a spatial. You can see how crowded it is. There's people all over the place. It's not standing room only, but nobody's there's not. And this was kind of before the speeches. The speeches kind of congregated people up towards the front, but this is a pretty decent turnout and plenty of stuff for people to do, to interact, to mingle, right? Nobody was standing around bored. Nobody was so worried about so many other things to do that they weren't paying attention to the speeches. You can kind of see underneath these trees, people started to set up chairs and stuff. Look at the diversity of age. Look at the diversity of clothing. Look at the diversity of genders and everything else you want to divide people up with. This is Arizona. We're an interesting state, and this rally represented a lot of different people. I don't know how they do the determinations, how many people represent, show up, represent people, blah, blah, blah. But if each person here represents 10 people or 100 people, there's a lot of mix here, right? So with that, I'll shut up because now we do have limited time and we're getting towards the end. But you talked about that media. So let me ask, was that difficult, or were they aware of and hoping to be part of this?
Not difficult at all. I just, kind of started sending out texts to people that I know that I feel like do a good job and are interested in helping us put our best foot forward. I hadn't reached out to Ford. Ford and Sean are pals. And so it just happened that Ford came in and Sean picked him up at the airport. But yeah, I had texted George and Chris Swainhart and a few of them. and just said, just want to be sure this is on your calendar, please come out. And a couple of them were like, oh gosh, I'm glad you reminded me. Yes, I want to be there. I just hadn't put the date on my calendar yet. There's a group called grassroots50.com, Ray Michaels and Noel Roberts. We also had George Ortiz and Eric Williamson it's a cute name. It's the Chips and Salsa Show. And so, people just came out and helped carry our story farther than the people that could just physically be there that day. And I feel like if we aren't thanking them, if we aren't helping people connect with them and help their brands grow, then we're missing an opportunity. So I thank them on the day, and thank you for the time to be able to talk about them here on your show, because I want them to come back every year and help our stories live longer than just the 5 or 13 minutes that we are on the stage. But
that's awesome. So I appreciate that. And I'm hoping you'll send me that list. As I archive this, I'll be sure to archive the people that do show up, because that's their rally now, right? I feel that way. It's my rally. I've been going for however many years, right? And I've been to the other ones, and this is the one that's still going 10 years later. Other ones were flashes in the pan out of, sometimes genuine effort, but other times just the ability or the interest, but that was fleeting interest. This is a 10-year annual event now, and it's becoming a tradition, and it's bringing, again, this group of people didn't accidentally show up. I'm wondering, is it, well, you don't really, all you can do is ask people to show up. I think the fostering of it comes from your reaction each year and how you develop the event and what you enhance and what you don't, and bring in the family type events, bring in the food in, making it, Tony called it a festival type of atmosphere without being frivolous. It was a serious atmosphere without being super political or you got to do this or that. There was a nice diverse mix. People didn't get offended. Like I said, there was a little bit of tension. It was real, but it wasn't anything big. And anyhow, without getting too much into it, with getting too many tangents, yep, I lost where I was going with it. I was asking you to send me the links because I guess I was going to do is rag on the people that didn't show up. So I'd like to, and Cheryl won't do this, but I'll do it. And Tony doesn't necessarily do this, but I'm sure he doesn't mind if I do this because he's seen me do this before. See who didn't show up to this rally and who had the possibility, who had the potential to show up to this rally, right? The people that do support what actually is boots on the ground, what is grassroots, and those who don't. And when I'm not just putting a challenge out there to those who put our shingle on their shoulder, but the people who weren't are the people like the antis, right? They don't have any actual skin in the game. When they want to complain, they can come out there and force. I was trying to explain to Tony just how large the anti-gun rally was in 16 with 18,000 people in that same place that we were. And it was drastically different. Not one of them was there, and they weren't afraid. They weren't there because they have no actual skin in the game. They're not really interested in guns. They're interested in control. We say that all the time, but it really has to do with they want their people to have the guns and control what we're doing. They just don't want to be a part of because they really don't have anything to challenge. And that isn't because we're bigger than them or we're looming over them physically or violently. It's because of people like Cheryl and the DC Project, which we'll hopefully have a chance to mention here a bit, changing the playing field. You've changed to politicians, to the representatives, the face of gun owners, not because you're giving them a message or some kind of good marketing, but because you represent gun owners, period, and what gun owners are and have been, but now are. And there's so many ways that you have used education to show how legislation isn't necessary, and I think that's something else that the rally offered. It wasn't just let's yell about our property and our rights. Let's pander and let's do stuff that would bring more views. We could have definitely had more views if we would have had a lot more of a certain person's flags there, right? And a lot more of the us and them, but we didn't. This was in Tony's speech was like this. Rhonda Mary's speech was like this. Others had speeches that were there is no us and them. This is everybody's fight. And here's why it's a civil right and why we're all on board. All right, I'll shut up.
Absolutely. And on that point, one of our speakers, and I give this person so much credit because I met him, I think 3 rallies ago. He reminded me last rally that he'd like to be a speaker. And then this year he pinged me again after I'd already started building my list. And I was like, oh my gosh, yes, I just had lost his contact info. But the president of, most people don't even know this exists, the Liberal Gun Club of Arizona, right? Like, who can speak louder to the politicians, the Democratic politicians who want to take our rights away other than their own voting base? And so I asked, his name's Scott Pryor, great guy, super easygoing, very likable. There was a tiny part of me that was nervous that when I was going to announce him that there might have been boos or grumblings in the crowd, like liberal, what, you know what I mean? But there wasn't. And I was so proud of our people. I was so proud that people were just like, okay, we can disagree on 999,000 things, but here's this one thing that brings us all together, and let's have solidarity on it. And he gave a good speech, and people wanted to interview him and interact with him afterwards. And he came away feeling very pleased and proud of his efforts and how the day went, and he felt welcomed. He didn't feel like, oh, that's that other side.
Yeah, appreciated, not a spectacle. And I think the opposite of what he experienced would have been, okay, and then walked away without any reaction, right? Like that.
Yeah.
Susan's out there from Missouri. Worthwhile Fun on YouTube.
I love her. She's amazing. She's always in the legislature out in her state doing good work. But
speaking of that, that's DC Project. You kind of alluded to being at the Ambassador Academy the week before, up training to be, they claim it's for up training to be a gun person, like a representative in the gun industry. Take I always touted as being up training for Second Amendment activism and activists to learn your skills and collaborate. Take the rest of the time that we've got together. Tell us about the DC Project, the other things that the ladies are doing out there that you're part of or aware of.
Oh my gosh, the DC Project is just growing in so many ways. And I think we're on our 7th year. We started out one woman from each state. We'd go to Washington, DC, make appointments with our federal legislators from our state. And then I don't know if this was always the plan or if it just kind of morphed and then was accelerated by COVID. But our founder, Diana Muller, said, let's recreate what we're doing at the federal level in every state. And so like Susan, who popped on your screen there, she'd be the state director for her state. I'm the state director for Arizona. And so we want to have one woman from each legislative district, right? So here in Arizona, we have 30 legislative districts, and I'm trying to fill my membership with at least one woman from each district because, again, who can speak louder to the elected officials other than the people that actually can vote for them or not? And so it's a wonderful model that she's given us. And I am still needing women from some of my districts, but the rally definitely brought some people together. I think I had 16 new ladies sign up. I'm trying to have an in-person meeting once a month and take that meeting, bring in a speaker and have them teach us something. So last year I had Joanne Osborne, who's a former state representative, and Michael Infanson, who's the chief lobbyist for the AZCDL. And we talked about how do you even know who your legislator is? How do you impact legislation? Just kind of the bare bones, nuts and bolts. This month, we have Kathy Herod from Center for Arizona Progress, CAP, and Kelly Townsend, who's a former Arizona state representative. And they're going to talk about how do we testify? How do we offer testimony in person at our state legislature that's impactful, concise, because we really only get 60 to 120 seconds. So a minute to 2 minutes, you've got to be able to say something important that's not talking points, that's, this is how legislation is either making my life better or worse. And it's going to be really exciting to see as we go month to month and we start building on these lessons and empowering people with education, not legislation.
Right on. That's awesome. And I've watched enough testimonials over the years to know that when the people are bussed in from the other side by the 14th richest dude on the planet that hides grassroots under AstroTurf or whatever they say, they're given a card and their goal is to impact, the 81% Texas. We made a joke of that because every single testimonial, while on the other side, CloverTac, who was going live for the 10 hours, destroying his YouTube channel's metrics, to broadcast the testimonials of the individual Texans that showed up in Austin. We're talking about Texas now, but showed up in Austin that year for 3 minutes, however long that was, 2 minutes, 3 minutes. They spent 10 hours waiting. Well, they were watching Clover's feed. They were able to see what other Texans had said and adapt their messages so that they weren't repeating each other. They were adding to. And it sounds like what you're doing is so that you don't need to depend on someone maybe broadcasting that you might be able to discover. In fact, setting up strategy ahead of time so that you're capable of being a team and a group and not just a bunch of drones out with the same message to just beat it into the representatives, I guess.
Exactly. And then even Diana Muller wants us to be the counter voice to the moms demand action, but also the counter visual. So they show up. I don't know how they get so many people to show up and just throw these red T-shirts on, right? But they do. They get like 50 people in the room. And so to the legislators, the visual is, oh, well, if you're a soccer mom or a grandma or whatever, you obviously hate guns. And all right, that helps me make my policy. So then when we show up, we are teal for 2A. We've got, those bright teal blue T-shirts on with the AR design, and it says educate, not legislate. So we don't even have to open our mouths sometimes. Just physically being in the room to be that counter visual is powerful and impactful. And so, that's that foot in the door, that nose under the camel's nose under the tent, all that kind of stuff that, once you focus in and you realize the importance of it and kind of how easy it is, it is, you don't have to have a degree in speech making or something to show up and just say, I'm a wife, I'm a mom, I'm a grandma, and this legislation is going to harm me because, and then you fill in the blank with the truth of your life. It's easy and it's kind of fun.
Right on.
Yeah.
Tony, I gave Cheryl the end there Cheryl could have, with her participation in the community over the years, and honestly, just with their gun shop. Her gun shop was epic. I've said it, it's gone now, but I've been to a lot of gun shops, and that was an epic gun shop. You could have literally just washed your hand and been like, let's get into the pinball games or whatever. Instead, still got pot of gold auctions, still doing firearms auctions almost every single Tuesday over there, right? Cheryl could have been done with that. She decided to keep going. She's working with the AZCDL Foundation, AZCDL, and Faster, bringing that in. Could have been done there. DC Project could have been done there. DC Project finding state level stuff could have been done there. DC Project traveling to Florida to uptrain to be with these ladies and whatnot could have been done there. Came home and ran our state rally, and that's not all you're going to do. You got AmCon, right? I don't even know what all. So thanks for everything you're doing. Appreciate you taking that time and doing it. I appreciate you kind of experimenting with me on this after action while
This
it's still
fun.
fresh. I know you've got guests literally at your house, so appreciate everybody taking the time. But I'm gonna give Tony then say thanks to Cheryl, and then give Tony the rest of the time, and then I'll just do a quick commercial for my project at the end. But thanks everybody for joining us live. We probably blew off a couple of questions here, but I'm gonna just apologize for that. Let Tony finish it off here.
Really, I appreciate being able to come out. Yeah, I did a little adventure. I'll go ahead and tell you guys quick. Food. I know it's hard to believe looking at me, but it's kind of important. I went to get something to eat and discovered that they have weed dispensaries here, and it was, I guess, Free Taco Friday. So they were giving tacos away at the weed dispensary that was close to where I was staying. So I got to try like real authentic Arizona tacos, Mexican tacos, and it was awesome, awesomely delicious. And I was glad to be a part of that because food and culture go together. It brings people together. And a lot of people are interested in like, what'd you eat there? What'd you do there? If people don't know, yeah, I do Google food reviews, restaurant reviews online. I have like over 1 million views or something like that on the things I do. So it's really cool. And that's an aspect of it I try to enjoy when I go to places. Gun Channels is the one that got me into that when we traveled to Kevin Dixie's Train and Learn. Had to be 3 years ago now. I appreciate being out there in Arizona. I really was glad to be able to speak to people and meet them in person like David, so we can do a diversity shoot out there. 2023, I'm going to try to be half as busy as Cheryl.
I still wouldn't recommend it. It's too much.
Yeah, I'm like, maybe if I could be half as busy as Cheryl. Yeah, so we're trying to hit multiple states, multiple diversity shoots. I want 501c3 status, so that's something I'm going to be working on. I still have to buy a home because I'm staying at family's house right now. I have a lot going on. We plan on going to NRA ILA and hosting a diversity shoot in Indianapolis, so I'm working with that. So that's what we're trying to grow, and we're trying to make a difference and make people feel welcome across the country. People have often asked me since I started this in 2015, when you coming to us? Well, it's going to take money. So yes, you're going to have to go to diversityshoot.com and help donate. I'm working on something like with multiple firearms manufacturers to start having awesome giveaways that you can get in on so you can get something out of supporting us. So I'm working on bringing in funding continuously and continually so we can grow this mission. Yes, I plan on having diversity shoots across America that are homegrown, as in your area. But we have to put it together and we have to host it enough that people have the right idea, that you got to be inclusive. Because that's the only way we're going to make this grow, and that's the only way we're going to fight gun control off. Now, I've said it during my speech. I've said it over and over on this show. There's no one party. There's no one gender. There's no one thought process. There's no one political leaning that's going to save the second. It's going to be all of us. We have to make gun control political suicide. And we have to do that by bringing others in that believe in the same thing as we do, which is the human right of self-defense is exactly that, a human right, and it's not political. So that's what I'm working on, and that's how I'm trying to grow what we do. And I appreciate that Cheryl allowed me and had the faith in me to allow me to come out to Arizona and speak to people about this. And as far as me slightly going over the time,
I love it. It was perfect. It was perfect.
It was really great. I was trying to be I didn't want dead space. I didn't want dead sound. And I wanted to fill it with as much information as I could. And I really didn't know I'd spent that long. I thought it was maybe 5. I really thought it was about 5 minutes long.
It goes quick. It goes quick. Let me say one more thing if I could.
Sure.
So our attendance, it was good, but when you're talking about 30 speakers of the caliber of people that we brought together and the vendors and the food and the gorgeous weather and everything else, the fact that we have a brand new governor who is going to veto all the good work that the AZCDL is about to do, there should have been more, right? And I'm never going to be happy. Like Dan, my husband Dan, thinks there was about 1,800 people there. I'm not positive. I'm no good at estimating those things. But if there'd have been 4,000, I would have wanted 5. There's no pleasing me. But even at that, we have had close to 7,000 in the past when people felt like they're
scared.
Yeah. And your rights are always being threatened, always. And that shouldn't make you complacent like, oh, well, they're always being threatened. it should be one of our strengths is that visual representation of who we are. As you guys were saying, every age, every gender, every, possible demographic. We are a slice of Americana. When we show up and show the world and show each other who we are, that is so powerful.
That's an important aspect of it. I got to interrupt just because otherwise I forget. And you brought up an important issue, but I just want to make it, don't feel that because we didn't have numbers. I mean, if anything, let me offer from my experience and insight over the years, perspective or whatever, that when people do show up, that's the scaredest of the people who are in reaction and they're desperate to get information. So yes, the information seekers are there in droves, but when it's the times in between, there's the apathy sets in. Usually in the past, the only people that show up then are the diehard survivalists or preppers, or it's all doom and gloomers. They're not, but they get portrayed as that. The people that are the most Minutemen, the most my rights and my property. And what we didn't have this year was an extract of just those types. Of course, we're there. I consider myself that because I can't help it. My grandparents got that into me in my bones, so that's there. But I can still understand there's other elements to it, right? But that's not who was showed up. But you didn't get just the dry extract, waiting for the rest. What you had was a bunch of people who are truly interested, aware. And what I found, I was going to mention this too, is just for your own insight from AZCDL and the rally itself as being a successful thing. I have no idea how I know that the Attorneys for Freedom, I wanted to talk to them and I had to wait all the time to talk to them. So they definitely had a lot of interest in their new nationwide personal protection options that they have available. But anyway, that I know that some of them had a lot of standing time only. They had a lot of conversations. But I know that I saw waiting for Charles or whatever, talking to him, that AZCDL had quite a few people. But just standing around waiting for Tony to talk to people, standing in front of the GOA and the Gun Owners of America or the Arizona Citizens Defense League booths, there was quite a few people that showed up to the rally, carrying firearms or not, wives and daughters and others in tow, right? Or sometimes husbands and sons in tow, right? And walking up to AZCDL and going, I didn't know about you until they just said something at the rally. And I heard that more than once. I'm not just fluffing you up. I mean, that happened. So the rally brought people together who are interested, but not in lockstep, who aren't listening to the newsletters or the things that are going out. Instead, they heard that a rally, just the same way that people show up to a gun show because they see the billboards and wonder what it's all about. And the rally didn't frighten them and they didn't run away. They didn't have to feel like they had to elbow their way up to talk. They didn't have to feel like they were signing their uniqueness away. They knew that they were signing up to literally a Minuteman type event where all kinds of individuals who are interested in that same foundational important stuff are there to share and to learn. And it's not like a political thing or a religious thing or anything really. It was just a very, very positive event. So I wouldn't judge it as numbers. I would judge it as the smiles on the faces and how long people stayed. And it almost had nothing to do. I guess some people cared about technically there was some guns or something, whatever at the end there. Nobody stayed for that. They stayed for those last speeches. They were there for the interest.
The raffle.
Right. It was also way more comfortable being in the park instead of kind of feeling like we're across the street from the park. So I think there was a little more less need to leave, right? It felt like we were there. We were supposed to be there. I don't know.
I love that. Thank you for that. I appreciate
maybe
that.
Maybe it's because of the way the tents were around us instead of over to the side. We felt like we were in amongst where we're supposed to be and not standing there. I don't know. But yeah, I think it was the most successful I've seen. Maybe not in numbers, but in how people absorbed it and they're walking away with smiles.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'll share that with the writers.
I never hang out at it. I'm always around the perimeters. A fraction of the people left midway through or after Sheriff Lamb spoke. A fraction compared to normal. Like, oh, there's the headliners. Boom. None of that happened this time.
Because Tony was next, right?
Dude.
That being said, you know me, I do definitely have ideas for next year. So anybody that wants to chat about ideas for next year off air, we can definitely have lots of ideas for next year.
The first
ahead,
time
Tony.
I went to the thing, I felt it was really comfortable. So I don't have anything to build it on except the vibe, and I like the way it felt. So I mean, that's all I got. I don't know what the previous ones were. I heard it. I was worried about people not paying attention because I heard speeches from last year. I watched it, and I was worried that people weren't going to stop and pay attention, and they did. So I thought it was great setup.
Thank you. Thank you. You guys are good
You're,
for my
you're,
soul.
and one of the things that happened last year was a lot of people meeting each other. Groups of people showed up, and you saw, maybe, I don't know, we didn't get a chance to talk about this, but groups of people showed up and they were like 10 strong, 8 strong, and they grouped together and stay together, and they would be friendly and everything, but they didn't mingle. There was no dispersal. This time they weren't as deep, like 8 deep, or if they weren't together, they were mingled. So you created the rally, or am I saying, the Riders USA, and you have created an environment that's allowed, like you just said, people to experience the other gun owners in Arizona. Where are they going to do that? Most of us shoot on our own land or on public land. So we're not hanging out at ranges. If we are hanging out at ranges, you know how range people are. They're range people. They're like golfers or tennis people. They're already hanging out with each other. But the rest of us don't do that. We only go to indoor ranges when we have to, or like for some event. So most of us are out there being individuals. The rally brings those folks together to see who else is out there and to understand that we're not being forced together. We truly have a similar foundational interest. So I'll quit saying all this stuff. Thanks everybody for watching. I do have a project going over on Indiegogo that ends on Monday, I think. So I'll put a quick commercial for the end of the show for that. And if you have any questions, you can contact Tony or Cheryl on Instagram primarily. I think both of you, but they're on every platform. And if you don't know who they are by now, just ask in the comments and we'll definitely get you right over there.